Hi everyone, this is Arpad from StarPath Academy. Today I have the great pleasure to talk with Lynette Zang. She's the Chief Market Analyst at ITM Trading with decades of experience. She's a leading world currency expert and wealth preservation strategist. Lynette, thank you for coming to the show.
Thank you for having me, Arpad. I'm very happy to be here.
Boy, a lot of things happened since we last talked to each other, globally, especially with the Ukrainian situation going on, the Turkish government doing more crazy measures, but also the Canadian situation. You shared on the ITM Trading YouTube channel a video that I really enjoyed. Well, I enjoy all of them, but this one was special because you talked about the lessons from Turkey and how to
Mhm.
protect your freedom. So could you please, in a couple of words, kind of explain what is the Turkish situation with their high inflation happening there? And could you please then compare how real estate is doing compared to precious metals in Turkey, and what are the actions? Because I know you are like a hawk on these situations and you're always on top of your game. So we
I
would
do
really
my best. I have to tell you, there's so many things that are happening right now. It's like, you're juggling all of these balls. But going back specifically to what's happening in Turkey with their hyperinflation, and, it's interesting because real estate in terms of their currency looks like it's going up, but in terms of other currencies that are, I don't even want to say stronger, because the whole world is now experiencing high inflation, and when that will lead to hyperinflation is kind of anybody's guess, and maybe soon. I mean, maybe that's the answer. But the Turkish government, the Turkish people are so used to having their currency debased, similar to India, and they're both kind of on the same paths as well, where the individuals hold it on their body. So they hold their wealth, they call it under the mattress gold. And the scheme is, and that is their term, not mine, although I agree with it, it is a scheme, is to have people, the Turkish people, volunteer their gold. They know that's the only thing that really protects them from the government completely debasing the currency, but deposit it, then they'll get interest on that gold. Of course, then any gold that they deposit actually gets melted down and then put into good delivery bars. So you don't actually get that gold back. But in theory, they say, well, deposit your gold, and now you have this debit card. But if you want your gold back, maybe you can have it, maybe you can't, except it doesn't exist in its form anymore because they've converted it into bars and then put that in the treasury, and that is supposed to give the world confidence that Turkey can support their currency. Can it? Not really, because the scheme that they hatched just before this was to go ahead and make these deposits and hold the money, hold the Turkish currency, and if the currency loses value against another currency, then the government will pay you that difference. Now, how do they do that? They
yeah, I
print
was
more
about
money to do it, right? So they actually debase the currency more.
further, yeah.
Right. So, I mean, I don't think that the public is going to really comply, just like the public in India really has not complied to the degree that the government has wanted. They've complied more than I would, but, so I think that what we may be seeing very soon in Turkey is an overt confiscation, because they're already dealing with the whole world, frankly, is dealing with a covert confiscation of gold in the price manipulation. And we don't realize it. We look at what Wall Street says, and I don't know why people believe them, but they do. And but all of the price manipulations that have been happening globally, and even today, I think, I don't know where spot gold is at the moment, which is based on contracts, but I'm reading that the normal haven trades are not responding the way they typically would, considering the fact that apparently Russia has officially invaded the Ukraine, or started, not really so much invaded him as declared war. So you would think that safe havens would be exploding in price.
Right. Yeah, that's
And
what I
they're
would
not.
expect. Because in history, if nothing else, then war and the situations around war is the biggest factor, or put the one that pushes up the prices of precious metals, especially now with Ukraine, or some Ukrainian, Russian speaking Ukrainian citizens moving when they have to run. They can't take their real estate or basically anything else. They need that concentration of wealth that they can carry with them. So that has always been the situation. So I was about to ask you, why do you think that at least the global price of gold hasn't moved up that much? Now it has moved up a little bit, and you talked about the cup and handle formation. I don't want you to make crazy predictions. Nobody knows where and when things will move. However, why do you think that has been lagging so much?
Because, I mean, it's actually pretty simple. A rising gold price is an indication of a failing currency. The governments want you to know that their currencies all around the world are failing. They're at the end. No. And so they have to suppress the price where it benefits them. It's perception management, right? If they can dictate how you perceive something, then they can dictate how you will move toward that. So I'm going to say something that's not particularly popular. I'm sorry. But, if something is in the system, if it's an intangible like cryptocurrencies, they would much rather you do cryptocurrencies, which ultimately they believe that they can control, cut you off of, or what have you, as we've seen in Canada, right?
Right.
They have all your information. They would much rather you have that than something like this, physical gold, or even physical silver, either one of them, that you can tie. I mean, they used to sew them into their garments. That is concentrated portable wealth that is outside of the system. So they want you to be attracted to what benefits the governments the most, what actually gives them the most control, and they want you to stay away from what takes that control away from them.
Right.
Or they're going to take it from you.
No, well,
Not in all
you
cases.
put a
But
really interesting point there, that actually cryptocurrencies, as much as for some aspects I do like it,
me
for some
too.
other aspects I really don't like it. It
Me
is
too.
sort of in the system, because especially if people hold it in accounts that you signed up for, it's really just like a little brother of the banking system where everything is controlled anyway. So I think 99 or probably more percent of people who actually own some cryptos hold it like that, which is doesn't it's probably even worse than the banking system. So because it can be immediately tracked and all transaction tracked. So you put a very good point there, that it's not really outside of the system how people are holding it. Now you mentioned Canada. Do you think with the, well, not getting political here, but just your reaction. Did you update your models based on how desperate a government measure can be? What we have seen in Canada, that how they can just with an emergency order take complete control over banking systems, people's accounts, and take their lives away immediately, or life savings away.
I don't. Oh, I've only updated it as far as the timing of everything is, because I think so much of what happens is a test to see the reaction. So in Canada, it wasn't just the bank accounts and it wasn't just the individuals that participated in the protests, but it was also the cryptocurrency accounts. It was also the funding accounts, GoFundMe and the different funding accounts. It was also the insurance contracts that they might have on their vehicles or their lives or what have you. And it was also the people that might have supported them, sent in, $5 or whatever they could afford to try and support the protesters. So, yeah, when you see how easily a government can just shut you out, people need to wake up to the fact that they need to hold wealth completely outside of the system. And that even includes the cash that they're constantly debasing.
Mm.
Because if you can't use your credit card or your debit card and you need to buy food for your family, how are you going to buy that food? Unless you have, some tool of barter, which gold for me is not so much of a tool of barter. That's a tool to hold your wealth and maybe buy your way to safety. But, I look at what's happening with Canada, and then I look at the fact that our National Guard has been called into Washington for the possible trucker strike that may happen there next week. And I think that I think everything is escalating. And I look at the war and how that's going to impact the globe and the inflation when we're looking at oil that, it's interesting because this morning as I was working, I pulled a long-term chart on oil. And what you see when you look at that chart is that once the oil prices really spiked into 2008, yes, they came back a little bit, but they never came back, to the levels that they were before oil prices started to escalate. Other than that, when they went negative, that one fluke day,
Yeah.
right, when they went negative. So we've been living with higher and higher oil prices. And at the same time, because of climate change, we've been actually pulling back on oil production in this country, and I think elsewhere around the world as well. But Russia supplies a lot of oil, especially and natural gas,
Yes.
especially to Europe.
Yeah, very, very true. And it's interesting how, but because of we pulled back, someone else's share in the global, supply actually grew. So I don't know if that was a really good move or not. Now, of course, let's not get into that. But what would you say to the people who say that the U.S. dollar is different because the U.S. dollar is a reserve currency and it's backed by the full power of the U.S. economy and the U.S. Army and Navy?
Well, I would say that in some ways they're absolutely right. It is different, and therefore in this country we have a lot more at risk because what we've been witnessing over a number of years, this is not new, is the shift in power, financial power from the US over to China. And the relationship, a lot of what's been happening has created an even stronger bond, stronger relationship between China and Russia. So, as those dollars are no longer used as much outside of the U.S., there's less need for them. And, the other thing that I want to tell you, I saw this morning, I have not really dug into the full report from the IMF yet. It's a working paper where they were talking about the ability for central banks to just monetize the debt of governments and therefore not grow more debt. So we're talking about modern money theory.
Yes, yes.
And the justification for it. But what does that really do? So they say that it doesn't work well unless you have a truly independent central bank. Can you tell me what country has a truly independent central bank? Exactly. Exactly. Dead silence. But the world is hyperinflating, and I'll say something else, and I certainly can't guarantee this. And this is just my opinion. You might agree, you might disagree. But I'm not 100% convinced that this is a them versus us situation. And I say that because war always accompanies a currency life cycle, the end of a currency life cycle transitioning into a new. And what we've been witnessing, particularly since 2008, has been a globally synchronized movement. So, does it stop that quickly? I don't know. Or will this new war be used to justify a lot more money printing on the part of the global central banks?
Right.
Right? Because after all, how can they stop now that they have to fund this war? And it's not just the ECB. I mean, it's all of them. I have all of them over here.
That makes it so much more visual what they're doing. I once calculated like how tall a stack of $100 bills would be to stack up $1 trillion, because nowadays a trillion is like nothing. They just keep it writing on bills, and this will cost this many trillions and that many trillions. It's way above the International Space Station. I think sort of double the height of that. Nobody really could comprehend that, but we're printing it like crazy, like there's no tomorrow. So
You do know there used to be $100,000 bill, US dollar bill.
was it between banks they used?
Yes, it was between banks.
Doesn't that show you that it's really just a number written on a piece of paper?
Exactly. You don't even need to use the paper. You just punch it into a computer. But there also used to be in the public $10,000 bills, $5,000 bills, $1,000 bill, $500 bills. They never demonetized those. They just stopped printing them so that as people deposited them, they just never went back out in circulation. Because if they had actually demonetized them, it would have been more noticeable.
Right.
So you wouldn't have needed as large a stack if you had those $100,000 bills, or you had even the $10,000 bills, right?
Quite interesting. Well, I really like the information that you share on your channel. So everyone, link will be in the description below for ITM trading. Be sure to check out Lynette Zang on the YouTube channel there. I mean, the historical charts you compare, it just all makes sense, and you put it together so nicely, and you make historical comparisons. So I really like it. Unfortunately, the analysis is not always looking good for the future. However, it's very important for everyone to understand, because that way you can understand what is really happening, and she breaks it down for you, which is totally amazing. I really like to watch your videos anytime that I have chance. So regarding that, I think what would you say, or what is your opinion about the new digital dollar? Even the Fed put out, I think they now have a feedback form, and I looked at the form. I haven't filled it out yet. I'm not sure if they would be interested in my feedback, but what is your opinion about the possible digital dollar? Would that be able to stop inflation? Could that be kind of a bait and switch, or something totally new that we can't even comprehend? What is your opinion about the digital dollar, and could that be the new savior that will they be pushing on us?
First of all, no. It will not be the new savior.
Next question then.
I mean, yeah, next question. But, you know, what they need to do when they make this transition, and they know this, I mean, they've had lots of experience, is they need to keep things as close to normal as possible. Right. So we've actually been transitioning to a digital world since the 50s, when they let us have credit cards that there was no asset behind it. So the digital dollar is a programmable money, like the CBDCs, central bank digital currencies. We're moving into a realm where everything is programmed. So you start with gold that actually gave the public the control, right, over the government. Because if they didn't like what the government did, you'd go in and you'd convert this garbage into real money. But that, and then this is completely decentralized and also invisible. And according to the Bank for International Settlements, does not run, it's the only financial instrument that does not run any counterparty risk and protects you from political risk, which I think is very important these days. But then they took that away from us, and this is not real, but it's from the money gun. But neither is the one that says Federal Reserve note on the top that we use as our tool of barter. So they could create that inflation and take away its purchasing power value, but nominally you still had $100. Well, now they have to take that away so that you cannot save. They now will control not just your purchasing power value, but your principal as well. But what's the same in every single case? They're all called the dollar, right? Nothing else is the same, but the name is the same because it's very hard. One thing that they knew when they created this fiat money system, which is a government-based system, is that people marry the currency of the state. So it is so hard, even experiencing inflation from the day you were born, even that, it's so hard for people to comprehend that the dollar could go away when quite honestly it has gone away. There's virtually no purchasing power left. They have to attack your principal. That's why they have to take it digital, because then you have no control.
At that point, it's really just accounting scheme that
Exactly.
they run for you, basically. There's no power between two parties that want to exchange anything. It has to do through the central accounting system, I guess. Yeah.
Exactly. And if you're not spending, since we're a consumer-driven economy, if you're not spending fast enough, what do? They just lower those interest rates more into negative territory.
Right.
And you can sit there and watch your principal evaporate. And rather than that, what are you most likely to do? You're most likely to go shopping and buy anything that you think can hold its value better. So why not preempt that, right? Why not go into gold and silver? That is the only bargain out there that I see due to its fundamental value. I don't give a crap. I mean, I'm an ex-stockbroker. I'm an ex-banker. I understand this language, thank goodness. So I know that this is real money, and this is real money. And it's never gone to zero because it has both of them have the broadest base of functionality of any asset out there, because it is used across the entire global economy in every single area. It's real simple. So there's always demand, maybe more, maybe less, and so that is reasonable for the price to fluctuate based upon supply and demand. But there's always demand. That's why they've never gone to zero. Now, you can't say that about the funny money. That always goes to zero.
Just wanted to say that. I mean, every currency in the world has went to zero, other than maybe some collectible value that for Roman currency that they keep for fun, basically.
I bought a bunch because I want to do this little series, so I'll share this with you. But I did buy a bunch of currencies that don't exist anymore, and I think like this is a 25,000 central bank. This is an Iraqi dinar.
Yep.
Right. This is there's a silver certificate, right? You can't use the silver certificate anymore. You used to be able to convert it.
Change that, yeah.
Yeah, change this into this, right? Here is, let's see. Oh, this is from, a Confederate note, right?
Nice. Yeah.
Right. But I didn't spend a whole lot of money on any of this stuff. Here's what, 100,000, the Bank of Indonesia. So a rupee, right? I think I paid like $8 for like all of this.
Quite interesting. Yeah, it's just pieces of history now to remember. I remember when the Romanian lei was getting devalued, we used to have the 5 lei, which was a quarter. It was aluminum, and eventually people collected it because of the aluminum, and they used it just as washers. They put a hole through it and as aluminum washers. It was kind of mind-boggling how it went really to nothing. And yeah, and why do you think? I mean, sometimes I get frustrated with people that I try to explain at least my experience, and you are bringing out examples from various countries, from Lebanon, from Argentina, from anywhere basically, and
And
you
as
bring
well
up
as,
historical. And why do you think people, like you said, that yes, the U.S. dollar has been being devalued ever since anyone watching probably was born, but we don't comprehend it? Was it the slowness of it, or the confidence game that's in it, or how do you deal with the stress of people not sometimes not even being interested in the fact how they are being robbed every day?
well,
It's more of
you
a
know,
personal question. You don't have to answer.
I'll answer that. First of all, I think I've been doing this a lot longer, and I'm the youngest of seven, so I'm kind of used to people not paying attention to what I say. So it doesn't bother me that much, you know, because I know the truth. But and the way that I deal with it is I keep showing up and showing them the truth. And then why do I think they got away with it? Well, I was there when they shifted the currency for the inflation that we felt, that everybody's now talking about how the inflation is the highest that it's been since the 70s. Well, what happened in the 60s and 70s, right? We had the Vietnam War, and the government was funding it by inflating the dollar, right? And so the world lost trust in the dollar, and there was a run on it in the 60s when governments could still take dollars and convert them and pull the gold out of the system that created those restrictions. So I remember that inflation as a teenager. And then once Paul Volcker, who, I was there, and I remember it because I remember having a 15% 5-year certificate of deposit, right?
Yeah.
So he ratcheted up interest rates. I really think it was to give enough ramp room to control inflation, because the genius of this whole fiat money system that they started in 1913, that had not been attempted before, was for the central banks to control the rate and speed of inflation. And how do they do that? Well, they do that with interest rates, right? So when Paul Volcker came out and ramped up interest rates above the rate of inflation, there was a lot of room to go. And so they could then control it by raising the interest rates if it was running too hot, stopped people from borrowing and spending as much, or they lowered them if they wanted to heat the inflation up. That would inspire people to borrow and spend. But now we've been anchored at zero since 2008. So, they tested the lower bounds, right? There was lots and lots of negative interest rate bonds, debt out there. But they saw what the limitations were. So I don't get frustrated, because I know that the more you do your work, the more that I do my work, the more people, now that interest rates are not maintained at that low 2% level, and they're starting to see that their loss of purchasing power. I mean, we've had massive increases in wages, but those wages are not keeping pace with the level of inflation. So that makes it really noticeable. And as frustrating as it might be, I have a lot of hope, because I do see people more and more waking up to it.
It's definitely more people than would have been even a couple of years ago. However, the people I'm sometimes trying to reach personally just are not interested. That's what more frustrating. But I do see the change, and I mean, they have to wake up to reality or be crushed by it eventually.
Right. Or and might I say also, when we're talking back to the prices on gold and on silver and how suppressed they've been, I really don't think it was a coincidence that Bitcoin came out in January of 2009 and quantitative easing came out in March of 2009. And if the money that's gone into these cryptocurrencies by individuals, forget corporations, forget businesses, but just the individuals, if that money instead went into gold, we could still see them create more contracts to keep the price suppressed. But you know darn well gold and silver would be substantially higher than it is now.
Absolutely. Yeah, I do have a theory why some of these metaverse or virtual realities are coming out where you can spend your money, your actual real money, converted into funny money, and then spend it, because it's sort of a way of sucking up extra liquidity that you could have spent on something else in the real world, which would have driven prices further up higher, or God forbid, from their perspective, you, as you said, invested in gold or purchased gold, because that would kind of show how naked the Fed really is, or all central banks around the world. So I think that it is kind of sort of a sucking up currency mechanism to invest it into, whatever you can
Virtual real
buy.
estate, virtual clothes,
It's
virtual,
interesting.
yes.
Virtual real estate is, I mean, it's just bytes on a disc. I mean, you're not even buying that. It's just a register. I mean, anyway, so NFTs as well. So yeah, I do believe that it definitely plays together. I think it did purchase some time for them, and we'll see how it goes in the future. But so you mentioned the watching the game or the percentage points moving up and down through history,
Mhm.
and kind of how low we are at such a low point in history compared to historical comparisons. Do you believe that move again upwards to 15% or 20%, like how Paul Walker did, would that even be possible today? What would happen then? What is your opinion about that?
Well, all right, first let me say this. We see raging inflation, and what we also see are central banks doing this, not really raising
Right.
rates,
Yeah.
just saying, well, they're gonna. And then, boy, we're gonna come in hard and we're gonna raise them, a half a percentage point. That will not do anything to the
Yeah.
inflation because you're still ending up with a negative real yield, right? So, but the markets are actually way more powerful than the Fed. And we've seen how central banks, they call pivot from one policy to the complete opposite because the markets have a temper tantrum. And you see, it's so critical to keep these markets elevated, whether it's stocks or the bonds, which is what the interest rates are, or and the real estate markets, because that's what people pay attention to and makes them feel rich or makes them feel poor. So, I mean, I'm paying more than $4 a gallon to put gas in my car. Fortunately, it's a hybrid, so I've got some electric in there too. But still, I can afford the $4. It's not going to make a difference whether or not I am able to, feed myself or my family. But unfortunately, there are a lot of people out there that that's going to make a huge difference too. So as much as they can keep things hidden so that you stay static and status quo, and you look at the markets and you go, oh, well, all right, they're choppy. This is a buying opportunity because we've been trained that when it dips. So when you ask me about interest rates and the possibility of them going up, I would say that I don't really see a central banker willing to raise the interest rates at that level, but I can see the markets pushing interest rates up to there and beyond because the markets are big enough to overwhelm the efforts of the central banks, which is why you see them pivot when the markets have a tantrum.
Mm.
And I've shown the TYVIX, which they don't publish anymore, but it's the volatility index on the treasury bonds. And you can see how the treasury bond, the 10-year treasury, which is the foundation of all the global markets. It's insane.
Right.
But it is the foundation of the global markets. You can see as that transition from a government central bank led market, and it happened in 2008, the transition began because there was no volatility. It was just like a straight line, like a dash. And then after 2008, it went like this. And then after 2013, it went like this. So it's the traders that are really in control of this market. And I could definitely, traders don't give a crap about policy. They care about their profits. So I can easily see, yes, I can easily see. And I always like to do this too, because people don't realize, like, the municipal bond market is now very volatile, right? These are interest rates. These are bond prices. When interest rates go up, bond prices go down. When interest rates go down, bond prices go up. But when those interest rates go up, and then you might notice, if you open your statement and you see you've lost 20,000, 50,000, whatever, depending upon the size of your bond portfolio. So yes, I can see interest rates going to 20, 30, 50%. I can easily see that.
Imagine a downward spiral in that. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not going to be the central banks that push the interest rates. It's going to be the markets that push them.
Great. Wow. So at ITM Trading, you offer strategies. What would you say? What does ITM stand out for in compared to other companies that maybe offer similar products? What makes ITM special?
Well, it is actually those strategies. I've personally been studying currencies since 1987. Thank you, Shearson Lehman. That's my alma mater. And I got to study under the head of currency trading. And so, I have to say that the strategy that we execute is based upon repeatable patterns, because history does have a tendency to repeat itself. And even though I can't guarantee tomorrow, the reality is, if something has happened the same way every time and we're basically doing the same thing, we are most likely to get the same kind of outcome. So I know of no other company that's actually executing a strategy. How much gold? People always say, well, how much gold do I need? How much silver do I need?
Right.
Okay, well, we have formulas, again, just based upon history, that can tell you how much cash you need, which is your first line of defense, how much silver you need, which for me is basically about barterability. And, and everybody is different. I think that this mess is going to really last for, well, I would say at least 10 years. So I built my personal strategy to have enough barterability for myself and my children for 10 years. And then how much gold do I need? Because gold is really about making sure that you can always pay your property taxes, which is one big risk that real estate runs. The other risk that real estate runs is in the changing, and we're all facing this risk as we're changing interest rate benchmarks going into 2023. But you want to be in a position, as we saw in 2008, where if things get dicey and you need to pay off that mortgage, that you can do it in a heartbeat. I know a lot of people believe in a lot of leverage, and I'm not one of those. I believe that I think leverage is fine as long as you have the ability to, pay it off when you decide that you want to pay it off. Because otherwise, they have you by the cojones, and you have to do what they dictate, which is not likely to be in your best interest. So the strategy really covers all of these different issues how to sustain your standard of living, how to protect the wealth that you've already managed to accumulate, and then finally, how to get into a position to take advantage of what's happening. Because wealth never disappears, it just shifts location. So the goal becomes, how do you have that wealth shift your way? And you have to maintain your purchasing power in order to buy those income producing or other assets that you might want when they are at bargain levels, which right now they're not.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
gold is, and silver is. So that's really what makes us different. This is really it's I can't say a lifetime, but it is really a relationship that we have with our clients, our family, that lasts, you know, for as long as you want it to last, and definitely through this trend cycle. Because anybody can put you into gold and silver. That
Right.
doesn't take rocket science. But what do you do with it and when do you do it? That's what we help you create a plan around based on your goals. And then that's what my work on the channel is about. Because I tell you what I'm doing when I'm doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. You provided such great information and education on your channel. I always like to watch your videos. There's always, I mean, amazing information coming out. And
Thank you.
yeah, thank you very much for doing that. And on the channel, it's free. And, I encourage everyone to check out the ITM's YouTube channel. Now, I personally do like real estate. I don't go over leverage. I don't over leverage myself, but
Good.
definitely that you brought up that there's a time for everything, right? And
Mhm.
now I look at it because where do I invest? I'm out of the stock market. I think completely, or and probably maybe, I mean 99% I'm out. Not interested in the stock market at these prices anyway. So I was looking at asset classes and other stuff, where to invest and what to do, and everything like price wise. There's very few really good purchases that can be made, other than because I want to say, well, here's gold and silver, here's this, but there's really not much left. I mean, the 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 fact that they want to hide the currency collapse that is happening, and that way they have to keep gold prices and silver prices so low, they're actually elongating this period and making good opportunities for anyone to get in and take advantage of the opportunity. So they're kind of actually maybe unwillingly but helping you with opportunity, but it
Absolutely.
won't do much if you don't take advantage of it. So I encourage
Absolutely.
everyone to look into it. Yeah.
A simple way, I agree with you 100%. And for those viewers that are out there are going, well, so how do you know? See, here's the thing. The real trend that people need to pay attention to is what's happening with the purchasing power. Now, you
Right.
lived through that in
Yeah.
Romania, right? That's the real trend. So if what you're holding can only be converted into that fiat money, the dollars, the euros, wherever you are in the world, can only be converted into that, then that's the real trend that you need to be paying attention to. Because
Right.
one thing that is a guarantee, and I can't give you many, but this one I can absolutely give you. All assets at some point go to their fundamental value. And that is the real value that they were created to perform. So that's a little challenging for a lot of people to understand. But fiat money was really created with inflation built into it, to rob you of your purchasing power over time and go to zero. That's the intrinsic value of a fiat money currency. In my opinion, the most important function, and gold performs, and so does silver, but gold performs a lot of different functions. The single most important function that it performs is in the financial area, where it has no counterparty risk and it protects you from inflation. So I can sit here and tell you that at 1900, at 10,000, at 20,000 an ounce, severely undervalued. Because if they were going to reset the currency today, the way they do that is against gold. And you would see gold north of $50,000 an ounce, which I get sounds outrageous because it's suppressed, but that's what you're talking about. This and this, gold and silver, are the only bargains that I see out there. And it is a gift. And we should all be taking huge advantage of this while we can, because no counterparty risk, no political risk. Gold held at home. I love that. According to the Bank for International Settlements, gold held at home runs no political risk. Even in Turkey, we'll go full circle, right? Why do you think the government is trying to entice people here? We'll pay you interest. Deposit your gold with us. We'll pay you interest. You're not making any money on that gold. Well, you don't need to. It's the safest thing that you can do. And the
They're
other
asking
thing,
you to sell your house insurance while the neighborhood is burning. It's crazy.
you're exactly right. You're exactly right. And the other thing that I really want people to understand of any means, right? Gold and silver in any form is monetary at its base. So it doesn't have to be, I mean, this is the easiest form, but one of the reasons why I wear jewelry, this is monetary. If I needed to use this to buy my child's life, this is a thing. You can replace a thing. You cannot replace a person's life. So, even Aunt Bessie's broken. I mean, this is a sterling silver chopstick that I bought at a yard sale. I can't even tell you how long ago I bought it, but I think I maybe paid 50 cents. I have the other one too somewhere. This is monetary.
Right.
Now, this isn't how I hold all my stuff, obviously, but it is another way to hold it. And people need to understand that if you have something, even those class rings that are 10 karat gold, because all gold is recoverable, it has monetary value. And I think that's really critical for people to understand, that there's all different ways that you can, at any economic level, protect yourself.
Lynette, thank you very much for coming on to the channel. Is there anything else you would like to share with the viewers?
I think we've covered a lot. But, I would say that the time to start, if you haven't started already, get started. And no, just because gold is somewhere around, 1900 or what, it is not expensive. It is dirt flipping cheap. And silver at, 23 bucks an ounce or something, it's ridiculous. So take advantage of it. Central banks are. Take advantage of it. Get your position set up, as well as food, my mantra: food, water, energy security, barterability, wealth preservation, community, and shelter. Get it done. At ITM, we are all here to be of service.
Thank you very much, everyone. And Lynette, it was a great pleasure to talk to you.
Always. Thank you.